Okay, so first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm really very, very proud to be there. Indeed, 30 years ago, I had a chance to co-organize this event with several other people. And yeah, for me, it's very emotional. So if sometimes you feel too many emotion in my speech, so don't worry, it's just because of that. And before starting my speech, I would like already thank you for the great social event yesterday. I think we can applaud for this great organization. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit of history and 30 years of history. So I made my PhD in about small talk and in small talk. So it was a long time ago, and I had a chance to have my thesis published in books and translated in English. And actually, I think maybe a professor in Jussieu, in French university, used to use my book because they had a nice example of a calculator written in Smalltalk, and it was a nice design. So he liked to use his book. So I made some money because of just this professor and his student every year buying this book and in Smalltalk. So it was cool. Another point I wanted to mention about this history that during my PhD, and for this reason I could not meet you before, guys. My director, Harald Wertz, used to come to visit me every other week in my office, and was asking me, okay, what did you discover new about Smalltalk? And each time I tried to find some really cool things to share with him, and until I found the conditional. And when I found the conditional, I say, okay, you don't need to learn anything else. You got the point just with that. And I never saw so great way to present and to understand Smalltalk than through the conditional. For me, it was a sort of light in my object-oriented culture. And then after that, I was still looking for that in any other language and never could find the best way to present conditional than this way. And then after that, after my PhD, I started a career in Smalltalk as a CTO of a small French company. And then we built several tools. So at this time, in the early 90s, we were able to do some really cool things in Smalltalk. So one was about driving these kind of machines with some sensors, which are able to verify the planarity of some holes that you have in engines and so on. And it was used by Renault, the French OEM. And I work in a big project, more than 40 developers in Smalltalk, which was amazing for us to see 40 guys with 40 boxes of Park Place Smalltalk. And these guys were coming from COBOL, from other languages, and we had to help them understand how Smalltalk works, and it was also a great story. And last but not least, another project named DACPro, where we start doing what we name meta modeling. And I discovered recently, when I visit some people in Canada, in Montreal, that actually they made most of their career starting with this platform written in Smalltalk. So you could design the artifact that you are using in your business. So two main projects that we had, one for the banking, to describe banking process. So the people were able to describe their banking process, and then after that we could generate the documentation and maintain the documentation for that. Another one was to describe a Minitel application workflow. So I don't know if you remember what is a Minitel in France, but it's our old French internet, long time ago. And you could design screen by screen, and each screen you could generate some events with your keyboard and move to another screen. And yes, so I co-organized ESUG since from the number 2, and I checked numbers until the number 6, because after that I had been hired by a Canadian company named Object Technology International, and I start working with them. It was a good chance for me to improve my French and my English, and so as a consultant and on Visual Age Smalltalk. So these guys were amazing. So I was used to use Parkway Smalltalk, and then I moved to Visual Age Smalltalk at this time. And so I continued to that until 98, when they closed the lab in Nantes, where I was located, and I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. And then when I arrived there, they told me, we have 10 projects, 9 are in Java, and 1 in Smalltalk. What do you decide? And I understood that, okay, maybe it was a good time to make a move. And I was desperate. So I really did the move and joined this guy. And I was lucky because next office next to me, a guy named Simon Archer, who was also a Smalltalker, he was hearing me yelling on Java every other day. Why you cannot do that? I cannot do that, and so on. He was coming to my office and calming down and say, no worries, it's a good way. I understand your point. That's okay. No worries. You will learn, and so on. And I could survive thanks to Simon. And I start to be more and more involved in Java and work on what we name is Visual Age Micro Edition, which was the first IDE written in Java for Java developers. And in 2000, IBM came to us because we had been bought in mid-time by IBM. And they asked to our team, hey guys, can you now not only support Java for embedded systems, but Java for enterprise? And a part of the team started to work on that. And a year later, they decided to push Eclipse as an open source solution. And it's how the story of Eclipse started. And I continued to work as a committer on Eclipse, and but always mainly for embedded systems. And later on, I started working on the next generation after Eclipse, which was Rational Team Concert. I don't know if you heard about that. Eclipse is a platform where you try to bring all the features that the developer needs. Rational Team Concert was a platform where you try to bring all the features that a team needs to be efficient. And it was ancestor of GitLab, of GitHub. It was a great product. Unfortunately, IBM decided to not open source it. And for this reason that they failed compared to GitHub at this time. And then after that, I have some other career as a manager at IBM. So I discovered the dark side of IBM and decided to leave and join another French company for a couple of years. And then my old friends from Eclipse invite me to join them and to be a part of the foundation. So it was in 2016 as a research relations director of the foundation. I put some number here just to remind you that Eclipse is much more than an IDE, right? Usually when I ping students or ping people in some conferences, I say, guys, do you know Eclipse? Yes, of course I know Eclipse. It's an IDE, okay. Yeah, it's much more than that. Today, so Eclipse supports more than 400 open source projects, and the IDE part is only 70 projects. All the others are about cloud computing, about IoT, about automotive, and so different domains. So it's important to realize that and to understand that, and for this reason, I'm here today to talk to you. It's about a cluster of communities. So really, Eclipse today, we help communities working together and understand how they can really collaborate openly through an open source solution. And it's not so obvious. So here are the main domains where we interact. Of course, tools for historical reasons. IoT also, automotive, we are very active communities around IoT, cloud computing, and AI. We start in AI and operating systems. So now let's talk about communities. And I will start with 2 examples. And these examples actually are examples from my career. The first one is MQTT. If you are involved in IoT world, you know that what is MQTT. Actually, MQTT is protocol, publisher-subscriber protocol. And when I joined the foundation, I heard about the MQTT, it was already very famous in 2016. And I said, it reminds me something. And when I was in US, every month, IBM was inviting one team to present one of their projects. And a team came one day, we were talking about MQ series. And MQ series was a protocol for communication machine to machine. And because I was involved in embedded system, I was not so much interested, but I was just listening. And so I started to dig a little bit more, and I discovered that yes, MQ series was the ancestor of MQTT. And when you check the Google trend of MQTT, you realize that it was really pretty flat for several years. Actually, we should go until 1999. And at some point, something happened here. And if you check it out, you realize that it's exactly the date when IBM decided to open source it as a open source solution for embedded devices. And actually, the community of IoT, it was IoT started to grow a lot in around 2009, and they realized that it's very small, very efficient, easy to understand, easy to add devices with this kind of simple behavior, and they adopted very quickly. And in 4 years, they reached the situation of to be a standard. And the power of that, of moving from almost flat situation to a standard, is the strength of the community. The community was able to pull up this kind of protocol to a position of a standard. Other story is Bosch. In my career for almost 20 years, I was involved with these guys for different reasons. First one, I met them in 2000. I had to travel back to France and to Germany, actually, and to start presenting what we were doing in embedded systems. And I started mentioning some open source frameworks. And the guy said, no open source in our own house. No way, it's viral and so on. We don't want to hear about that. Okay, fair enough. I stopped talking about that. I came back a couple of years later, because I was back in France, and some students were using some open source solutions. I said, you told me that never you will see and you will never use any open source solution. And the guy said, yes, but these guys are students. We don't really care. They are working some separate, isolated environment. They can have fun together. And came back a year later, and they were using some open source solution. I said, what happened, guys? You completely changed your mind and say, yes, actually, we realized that these students, you remember last year, they were able to achieve something in 3 months. We were not able to achieve in 3 years. So there's something wrong then. So we decided to investigate a bit more. And we start to challenge the students and say, hey, guys, yeah, okay, you are using some code, but what's going on if there is a bug in this code? And the students say, yes, there is a community behind that. Really? So, yeah, so ask them to add this feature will be very helpful. So students just open a bug report, ask for this enhancement, and a month later, send a new version with this new feature. So Bosch said, oh my gosh. So these guys, not only they get for free thousands of people testing their code, and by they get for free great ideas as well. We should try that. So sending back messages, contributing, and they decide, okay, let's try to do our own components, not strategic components, something that we don't really care if people can steal it. And they put it in open source. And they realized that people were behaving exactly the same way as they were behaving with the other components. People were interested because of Bosch, because they were a subcontractor of Bosch, and they were able to provide feedbacks, tests, and so on, and very enthusiastic. And then I arrived in 2016, just a year before joining the foundation. Eclipse invited me to come to the EclipseCon event, and I saw on the stage the CEO of Bosch joining the foundation as a strategic member of the foundation. Strategic member of a foundation for a company like them, it means that they pay every year 300,000 euros to be part of the foundation. So it's lots of money. Not lots for me, maybe not as much for them, but still, it's lots of money. And I tried to understand what's going on, why they decide to do that. And I talked with some good colleagues of mine, and they say, the story is this one. They realize that in IoT, there are plenty of different platforms. And each of these platforms are based on some GAFA solutions. And Bosch didn't want to depend on any GAFA solution. So they say, we want to build our own platform, but we are not big enough to be able to compete with these big fishes. So let's build a swarm of companies working together to build an open source solution which is completely independent of a specific GAFA or specific devices and so on. And they decide to go with Eclipse and to have this kind of strategic approach of collaboration. And since then, there are very strong activity around IoT at Eclipse, and now even more with automotive, where they're still pushing some new project and so on. So they are very strong on that. So again, other approaches, other way of seeing communities. One way, you push some code and then stars are aligned, it's a good moment to push your code and you realize that people are happy to use your code. Another one, you build a community step by step, trying to bring people to work together with the same vision and same understanding. So, building a community, what does it mean? We have some experience for research project where I'm involved. Actually, we have these guys where we're involved in European projects, and sorry, I need to take a drink. And they come to us and say, hey guys, now European Commission is pushing us to open source our code. So we start pushing our code 3 months before the end of the project, and nothing happened. How do you make to create this kind of activity around a project? What is your secret? What is your recipe? And we start explaining them few rules. And here's a kind of rule or practices that we do, we suggest. The first one is sharing. For us, it's very important to share as much as we can, as frequently as we can, to show to our communities that we are alive. All these social media, all these blog posts that you write, it's a heartbeat of your project. So if you have regular heartbeat, people realize that yes, this project is alive, so I follow what's going on with them. News and noteworthy. It was really very efficient with Eclipse and still very efficient in lots of projects where you have a small paragraph about the new feature to give the desire of your user to install the latest version. If you don't show them and just a release note about the new feature, very boring list of features, people will don't try. If you have a cool video where you can show how you are excited to share with them what you have built the last 6 months, and people immediately want to try it. And it's, of course, for you, it's a great feedback because people will be testing this new feature and they will maybe discover that it could be improved or maybe there are some bugs. Another also very important feature for us is getting started. Without the getting started, lots of people will just give up unless they really know already what you are talking about. If they don't, they just don't try. So getting started with a hello world sample where you can already help them set up their environment and see that everything works properly with a simple example, it's already a great support. And also complete and ask people to help you complete the documentation. You are not the only one on that, and I will talk about that later. Second aspect is embrace your community. You cannot stay in your labs, you cannot stay in your office and expect that people will come to you. There are so many great ideas outside. So if you want to have a chance to be visible, you need to make yourself visible. There is no secret. So go to conferences, organize local events, or participate to local events. There are lots of communities outside, people in your city who will be happy to have you talking about Smalltalk or talking about your projects. And you might discover that next quarter in your city, you have some companies who are looking for this kind of competencies, and vice versa. Or you might be, as a professor, for example, send some students to this university to these companies to do an internship. And so meet other communities as well. It's very important. It has nothing to do directly with your topic. Else you stay in your ghetto. It's also something that we realize it's not good to do. So it's really important to meet other communities to understand. And you might discover that other community, by this cross-fertilization approach, will be very interesting to say, yeah, I should maybe try this technology to see, maybe it can help me solving my own problems. Engage. So far, you are giving to your committees, right? You share your code, you share your documentation, you visit these guys. Now you need to have feedbacks. You need to have readers. So you need to engage them to be sure that what you have done so far is really valuable. So you organize these kind of events, workshop, webinars, hackathon, contests. Bosch, for example, organize every year some contests with some students, and they're always amazed to see the kind of great ideas these students have during their annual IoT conference using their technology, and they never thought about that, and they realize that these guys have great ideas, and and it really provides great feedbacks. Last but not least, you need to develop your community. So I saw yesterday you provide awards. That's great. It's a great cue. It's very important to promote success, to pull up your best players or your community to show that if they're bright, you will bright as well, right? And then you need to support and respect. And when I talk about support and respect, I like to use a sentence of a guy named Eric Gamma. Maybe some of you know him. Eric is one of the fourth who wrote the book Design Patterns, which was very important in the late 90s. And Eric, we work for the same company, actually. We joined OTI together. So we were in the first meeting together, sitting next to each other, learning about how the company is organized and so on. And so Eric was saying that a bug report is a love letter. Why is love letter? Just imagine, you have a guy found you in the middle of 400 millions of repository in GitHub. Today, they have more than 400 millions of repositories, right? So they found you. He read or she read your README file. He said, interesting. Let's give it a try. Decide to download your code. He was able to install it, to run it, to go through the first getting started, and then he found a bug. Two options. He said, okay, scrap. Straight away. Second option, he said, wow, that's really pretty cool. I really would like to go next step. Let's see if the community will react and will help me to reach the next step. And then he writes a bug report. So you imagine the motivation that the guy had when he decided to write you. So if you don't answer immediately, I don't say you have to fix the bug immediately, but you answer him immediately. Say, okay, thank you for finding that. Thank you I will fix it in the next release or in the next month, whatsoever. Of course, the guy will run away and will look for something else. But if you take this time to answer him immediately, he will be happy because his lover decided to also react to him, so he realized that the project is in life and so on. So it's very important to respect and to support your community when people try to join. So you see, you share, you embrace, you engage, you develop. So what you are doing, you seed your community. So it's very important to have this kind of approach when you do open source, to think about the community and how you can make it grow by having this kind of clear values. So as a takeaway, I would like to remind a few things. First, be a good citizen with open source. I mentioned to you, yes, you have to respect your community, but the opposite is true also. People are using open source. Very few are providing feedbacks. It's really sad. You have some people who are working their free time to share the code, or even if they are paid for that. But nevertheless, they spend time, they try to make it readable, to provide cool documentation, good news and noteworthy and documents. You receive a new version, say thank you. Just thank you. Hey guys, I got your last release. Thank you for taking time to do it. It's a very simple word, but the guy who is on the other side, it will make him so happy that, wow, people realize that, yes, I spent some time to do this job for them. So I don't know how many of you said thank you with the last release of Faro, for example, but just think about that, okay? If you didn't do it, maybe next time you should do it, or maybe you should do it just after this talk. I don't know, but just think about that. It's very important to be a good citizen. Else, at some point, people just will give up. Okay, they have another opportunity. Why should I continue to work on this project, knowing that nobody really cares? Because nobody provides any feedback to me. Only complaints. Okay, when there is a bug, something doesn't work, they complain and they are tough on me. When there is something going well, they don't say anything. Remember, yes, alone, you can go far, you can go fast. But if you want to go far and stay longer, you need to do it together. You cannot do on your own. Because you cannot support by yourself all the aspects of the community. Community is not only about coding your project, it's about communicating. It's about doing some marketing. It's about also having people who will be able to talk about your stuff. So you need to even help them writing some cool presentation to pitch about your project. Or you need to have some other people ready to have some flyers to bring on some conferences to share these flyers with the rest of the world. So on your own, you cannot cover all these aspects. If you stay alone, by the way, there is a bus effect, which is very tough. So I mean that if some point the only guy who's developing the project decides to leave, everybody else is screwed. So you also, as a community, you need to see how you can help this guy by say, okay, hey, I did this presentation the other day talking about your project. I don't mind to share it with you. Like that, somebody else can maybe take it and make his own presentation based on this slide, on these slides. So you are contributing to the project. You don't need to contribute in terms of code. Contributing in terms of cool videos, documentation, all these kind of things are very helpful. And like that, you build also a strong community. And last but not least, we used to say that open source is a journey. It's not a destination. Exactly what I said before. These guys from in research who thought that just by pushing their code in GitHub 3 months before the end, something will magically happen. Forget it. That's completely wrong. You need to work a lot to make things happen. So for this reason, it's a long journey. So thank you very much, and I hope it was helpful for you. Any question? Any concern? Sorry. Okay, crystal clear. Okay, crystal clear. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much.